Let's learn about surface area and volume of cylinders. Let's look at example 1. Example 1 shows a cylinder with a radius of 5 and a height of 15. Both of those measurements are in terms of centimeters. And we know that when we calculate the surface area of a cylinder, sometimes it's easier to look at the parts by flattening it out into a net. And what does a net look like for a cylinder? Well, it's going to have a rectangular piece, okay, which is going to be this part here, this part in the middle, and then it's going to have a top and a bottom, and both the top and the bottom are circles. So my net is going to look like something like this, where I have two circles and a rectangle. So two circles and a rectangle. So what I'm going to do is take the area of both of these circles, which the area formula is pi r squared, and then I'm going to add to that the area of the rectangle. So we were given a formula of surface area to equal 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi rh. So we already know that we're going to use 3.14 for the value of pi. My radius is going to be 5. So when I square that radius, I'm going to have 25 here, plus 2 times 3.14 times my radius of 5 times my height of 15. So let's go ahead and plug those numbers in and see what we get. So we're going to get surface area is equal to 2 times 3.14 times the radius squared plus 2 times 3.14 times the radius times the height. Okay, so what I like to do on these types of problems is I like to solve for the individual areas in chunks. So I'm going to take this part and I'm going to go ahead and simplify that. So that means I'm going to multiply 2 times 3.14 times 5 squared, which is 25. And when I do that, I'm going to get 157. I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to calculate the area of the rectangular base by multiplying 2 times 3.14 times 5 times 15. And when you do that on your calculator, you should have gotten 471. So when I add 157 plus 471, I get a total of 628 square centimeters. So you want to make sure in your answer that you use the right units. And remember that those units, when we're solving for area, are going to have that exponent of 2, which means they are square units. Let's look at the volume formula. The volume formula is equal to pi r squared h. So we're going to use the same numbers that we're given in this cylinder to calculate the volume. We're going to use 3.14 for pi. Our radius is 5 to the second power, which is 25, and our height is 15. So let's go ahead and fill in that formula. We get 3.14. Whoops. I'm going to write it with this. Oops. 3.14 times the radius squared, which is 5 squared, times 15. So with the volume, I just have this string of factors to multiply together. When I multiply those all together, I got 1,177.5 cubic centimeters. So that means my unit of measurement is going to have that little exponent of 3. Okay, and that is it. Let's look at example 2, finding the surface area of a cylinder. This cylinder is the same thing that we saw in example 1, but instead, example 2 is sitting on its side or its lateral edge instead of in example 1 where we had a cylinder that was sitting on one of its circular bases. Let's go ahead and write out the formula for the surface area of a cylinder. And that is going to be equal to 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi r h. So if you look at this, we can see that we need to know three things. We need to know what pi is, and we know that pi is 3.14. We need to know what the radius is, and we need to know what the height is. So in this problem, we were given the height as 15. And we were given the diameter was equal to 7. So the diameter, remember, is twice as big as the radius. So that means if the diameter is 7, then the radius has to be half of that, or 3.5. So at this point, we can go ahead and substitute in our values of radius and height into the surface area formula. Let's see what that's going to look like. So we're going to start off with 2 times 3.14 times the radius squared. The radius, remember, is 3.5 because it's half the diameter, plus 2 times 3.14 times the radius, which is 3.5, times the height, which is 15. Remember, I said in the previous video that what I like to do is I like to calculate the two areas separately and then add them together. So when I multiply the first part, the area of the two circles, I get 2 times 3.14 times 3.5 to the second. When I multiply those all together, I get 76.93. And then I'm going to add that to the product of 2 times 3.14 times 3.5 times 15. And that becomes 329.7. So when I add the 76.93 plus 329.7, I'm going to get a total surface area of 406.63 square inches. Remember, my units of measurement are always going to be squared when I'm solving for surface area. So here's my answer, 406.63 square inches. For volume, remember we have a different formula. That volume formula is going to be pi r squared times height. So we know pi, we know radius is 3.5, and we know the height is 15. So this is going to give us volume equal to 3.14 times the radius squared, which is 3.5 to the second, times the height, which is 15. When I multiply all of those numbers through my calculator, I get an answer of 576.98. Remember that when we express volume, we always use cubic units, and my measurements were given in centimeters. So that means my answer would be 576.98 cubic centimeters. And cubic is just shown with that exponent of 3 next to the measurement. Example 3, we have another cylinder with a radius of 3 and a height of 7. Let's go ahead and pull in our formula now. We get surface area is equal to 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi rh. Remember, we're going to use 3.1 for the value of pi. 2 times 3.14 times the radius of 3 squared plus 2 times 3.14 times the radius, which is 3, times the height, which is 7. I'm going to calculate the two areas individually. So that means I'm going to take this side and calculate that surface area to be 56.52. Plus this side, remember this is the rectangular side, it's 131.88. When I add those two numbers up, 56.52 plus 131.88, we get a total surface area of 188.4 square centimeters. I almost wrote down the wrong unit of measurement. 188.4 square centimeters. Now let's look at the next part. We're asked to solve for volume. Volume equals pi r squared times h. So that's going to give me 3.14 times the radius squared times the height, which is 7. When I multiply all those numbers through, I get 7,850 cubic inches. Okay, let's look at example 4. We have a cylinder. Let me try to draw this one. It looks something like this. All right, and we're told two things. We're told that it has a radius of 10. So sometimes we show it this way. 10 centimeters. That equals the radius. And then we're given the height, and that is equal to 25. I'm sorry, these are in terms of inches, not in terms of centimeters. So let me change that. 10 inches. All right, let's look at our surface area formula. Surface area of a cylinder is 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi r h. 2 times 3.14 times the radius of 10 raised to the second plus 2 times 3.14 times 10 times the height of 25. And you know that I like to do these in chunks, so I'm going to calculate the surface area of the two circles and add that to the surface area of the rectangular side. So when I do that, I get the surface area of my two circles, or this part of the equation. This part of the equation is equal to 628. Now, this part of the equation, the 2 times 3.14 times 10 times 25 is equal to the lateral area, surface area, and that's going to be 1,570. So when I add those two numbers together, my surface area is 2,198 square inches. Don't forget that your units are always going to be squared since we're solving for area, and area is a two-dimensional measurement. Now the next thing we're going to look at is volume of this cylinder. Volume formula is pi r squared times h. We know our value of pi is 3.14. Our radius is 10, so we're going to square that, and our height is 25. When I multiply those three factors together, I get 7,850 cubic inches, which is just our unit of measurement, raised to the third power, because we're measuring now in 3 dimensions for volume. Okay, let's look at number 5 on the notes. Number 5. Number 5 says a cylindrical popcorn holder has a diameter across of 10 inches and a height of 8 inches. How many cubic inches of popcorn can fit inside the cylinder? So we're asking for how much popcorn can fit inside the cylinder. So anything that's inside the cylinder means we're going to be calculating volume. Okay, so we have a cylinder the popcorn can go into. And we're told that that cylinder has a diameter of 10. So the diameter is equal to 10 and the height is equal to 8. So if the diameter is equal to 10, then we know our radius is just going to be half of the diameter, or 5. Now, again, we're looking to solve how many cubic inches of popcorn can fit inside. So in this example, we are solving for volume. So I'm going to need to pull out the volume of a cylinder formula from the formula sheet. And that's going to look like this. Volume equals pi r squared h. So we already have all this information. We know that pi is 3.14. We know the radius is 5, and we're going to square that. And then finally our height is going to be 8. So when I multiply all of these numbers together, 3.14, 5 to the second, which is 25, and 8, we should have an answer of 628 cubic inches. It's very important to put that exponent of 3 to the right side of your inches. All right, we've got 2 more examples. Let's look at example number 6. We have a wooden post is being put at the beginning of Rodney's driveway. He's going to paint it black and then place his house number on top for decoration. If the post has a radius of 10 inches and a height of 20 inches, how many square inches of surface will be painted? So let's go ahead and draw a cylinder to represent this wooden post. So it's going to look something like this. Okay, and this is going to be a circle at the end. So we're told that the height of this cylinder is 20 and that the radius is 10. Or radius is going to be from the midpoint out to the side. So radius is going to equal 10 and height is going to equal 20. All right, so we're looking to solve for surface area because we're looking to solve for how many square inches of surface will be painted. Okay, so we're looking for surface area. It even says the word surface in the problem. How many square inches of surface will be painted? So let's rewrite the surface area formula. Surface area is equal to 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi rh. So that's going to give us 2 times 3.14. On this one, our radius is 10, which is the same as in the last problem, plus 2 times 3.14 times 10 times 20. I'm going to go ahead and set these up by calculating the area of the 2 individual pieces. So I'm going to calculate the area of the 2 circular bases first, and that's going to be 628. And then I'm going to calculate the area of the rectangular face, which is going to be 1,256. When I add those 2 numbers together, I get the total surface area of the cylinder as 1,884 square inches. All right, let's look at our last example, which is example number 7. So we have a cylinder cup that we want to design to hold pencils. And we're told 2 different measurements. We're told that the height of the pencil cup is 20, and we're told that the diameter, or the distance across, needs to be 15 centimeters. So again, we're talking about diameter. Now remember, in our formulas for surface area and volume, we're always using radius, not diameter. So go ahead and convert that rate to radius, which is just going to be 7.5, or half of what the diameter is. Surface area equals 2 pi r squared. This should be familiar now. 2 pi r squared represents the area of the 2 circular bases. 2 times pi r squared. Pi r squared is the formula for the area of a circle, plus the formula for the area of the rectangular face, which is 2 pi r h. Let's fill these in. We get 2 times 3.14 times 7.5 to the second power, plus 2 times 3.14 times 7.5 times height, which is 20. Okay, and let's go ahead and calculate the area of the 2 circular bases first. So when I multiply all this stuff together, I get 353.25. plus, when I multiply all these factors together, I get 942. So when I add the surface area of the circles plus the surface area of the rectangle, we have a total of 1,295 square centimeters. That's our final answer. Thanks for watching.